Yo, yo, yo. Black Santa here. Black Santa here. I've been telling y'all for the whole year that I'm Dr. Thunder. And yes, I am Dr. Thunder. But actually my true identity, which only emerges at this time of year, and as I am transformed when I put the hat on, I am Black Santa. And that's right. Black Santa says, yo, yo, yo. Not this corrupted ho, ho, ho stuff. Yo, yo, yo. So anyhow, and you may wonder where yo, yo, yo comes from. It's actually pretty racist, actually. It's from one of the Rocky movies. You know, Paulie, which is always drunk. And he has some fear, of, black people and their jungle junk music. That's a direct quote from the movie, Jungle Junk. Yeah, he's got a Santa Claus hat on, and he's drunk, which is, like I said, a usual theme. And he says, yo, yo, yo. So, here we are. I might as well borrow that. I am Black Santa, and this is Case Closed. And Case Closed is the highest level conversation on the most relevant topics in this space. Merry Christmas Eve to all. And I have a little something special for you today. Let's see here. Here it is. Oh yeah. Let's see, where am I at? Something a little special for you. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that Black Santa soon would be there. And voila, I'm here. I am here. All right. Our show today on this Christmas Eve. Case Closed 2023 Year in Review. Will Trump overcome obstacles? Will he overcome obstacles? And here are some of the things that we'll be discussing. Tuesday, the Colorado court ruled that Trump is disqualified by the Constitution from serving as president again because he stoked an insurrection on January 6th, 2021. Is this a priori disqualification going too far? Will this backfire on the Democrats? Will the Supreme Court uphold this decision? Rebels in Yemen are firing rockets at ships that go through the Bab el-mandeb straits, a very important route for global trade, with 12% of global oil going through this strait. Will this escalation lead to a quicker resolution to the Israel-Palestine conflict, or is this just leading us closer to WWIII? ChatGPT and the introduction of consumer products based on LLMs began in November 2022 Are we seeing a general increase in productivity due to AI? Are you incorporating AI in your daily workflow? Please like the video, like, share, comment, subscribe, become a channel member where you'll get access to all archived videos, support black male media, support independent media, super chats enabled, super thanks for the replay gang, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Dr. Thunder Music. Spell out the word doctor because yes, it is the season for giving and receiving. Anyhow, enough with this. It's time to get the show started. Case closed. 2023 year in review. Will Trump overcome obstacles? Let's go. Oh, you caught me. You caught me checking my list there. I'm not supposed to do that in public. Anyhow, like the video, like, share, comment, subscribe, become a channel member where you'll get access to all archive videos. Support black male media, support independent media, super chats enabled, super thanks for the replay gang. Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Dr. Thunder Music, all one word. Spell out the word doctor. And if you'd like to feed me sandwiches, then please hit the Cash App Sandwich Gang. Make sure you spell sandwich correctly. It has two M's. Sandwich. Merry Christmas Eve to everyone. And without further ado, but actually, let me give you a warning first, and then we'll start the show. Warning. Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right, all right, all right, all right. To the show, to the show, to the show. Now that we got our yo's out of the way, how's it going, LAR? How's it going, LA? How's it going in is it still humid over there? Or are things easing up a little bit?
Shorts and t-shirts.
All right, all right, all right. That's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. Sometimes it doesn't always suck over there in Texas. But shout out to you, shout out to you. Let's get into this Trump thing, right? So we heard Dr. Thunder. Okay. You guys in the chat, you heard Dr. Thunder talking about the fact that Trump has been removed from the primary ballot in Colorado. It's a Supreme Court decision, Colorado Supreme Court, that is, right? And there's 7 on the bench, and it was a 4-3 decision. The 4 that were for this, removal of Trump were appointed by Democrats. That is always important, right? Um,
Yeah.
it will be definitely viewed that way, and also there's a reason why the ability to appoint judges is a highly coveted kind of power that the president has. That so on and so forth, so on and so forth. We know the story, but this is all about Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, right? Insurrection, as you heard Dr. Thunder say, stoked an insurrection in January 6th was a nice Corona party, if we remember that. Um, but before we get into the matters of the law, the matters of fact, and stuff like that, let's just talk about the man in the middle of this thing. Let's just kind of make a prediction here. LAR, do you think that Trump will bob and weave through this one, get the Republican nomination for sure, and might even come out win the presidency? And also on the table is, do you think the Supreme Court will overturn it? Just kind of a gut feeling on Trump, and will this hold up overall?
I'm not sure if it holds up, but I don't think it matters because I don't think he won Colorado the first time. I could be mistaken, but I don't think he needs Colorado to win. So they can take him off the ballot, but all the other states are not going to do it, and you definitely not going to get the states that he wins decisively. They're not going to do it. So can he run? Yeah. Will he get the nomination? Probably. I mean, by actions like this, it kind of leans to he's going to get the nomination because they're not concerned about any other Republican. And did he cite an insurrection? Yeah. I mean, you can't. Was he part of the problem? Yeah, he was part of the problem. But the interesting thing is, the vast majority of those people that did it got slaps on the wrist. So ultimately, he's going to get a slap on the wrist. So it's not a. To me, it's just not a. It's more of a gesture than anything because they did this and you got a good 10 11 months really. It's December, but
So
let's just count.
let me
Yes,
let me
sir.
ask you this, LAR, and it's right about this gesture thing that you mentioned. So you said, you're thinking it's not going to work. That in terms of the base, the Republican base, it might even help, right? And it's showing whom they're concerned about, that they're going this blah blah blah. But this gesture that you mentioned, do you think that it's also a little bit like, especially if it's not going to work, it's kind of it hasn't been done before at the presidential level. Now let me give some history to this. Just a couple of sentences about the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which is like about insurrections, right? It was it was thought to have been implemented after the Civil War to kind of keep former Confederate people, right, from taking certain offices, right? That makes sense, right? So it's like, okay, no insurrection people around here. And it's rarely ever been used. It's been used a couple of times for certain uh, appointments and things like that. But do you think it's too much of a nuclear weapon, even if, especially since it's not going to be effective, and do you think it'll backfire somehow on the Democrats, or it doesn't matter? All weapons are out these days, and whatever.
I had to double check. So Trump won. He lost Colorado. So, like I said, he lost Colorado in 2016. So it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Doesn't even matter. All of these acts. Here's the thing: the United States is just basically on the precipice of having to admit that the incompetence has caught up with the country. Because if you think he's gonna lose, let him. You're giving him momentum by putting things in place to make sure he loses. And the things you're putting in place aren't gonna work. It's not like he's banned in Texas or he's banned in Florida. He's banned in the state he already lost. You gotta get banned in the state that you actually won and actually has a lot of votes in the electoral college. That's when that'll help the issue. But the fact that you got to do all this stuff lets you already know that the country's probably leaning towards Trump.
Yes. So basically, what you're saying here is, okay, it's localized. And that was kind of like the first thing that came to mind, right? Or first thing that should come to anyone's mind in the United States, understanding the way presidents get elected and such, that some places don't matter and some places do matter. That was the first thing that came to mind. And then, but generally, what the proponents of the 14th Amendment argument are now using um, is that in some other states, they have all these other existing challenges to remove him from the ballot as well. So now they're going to try to expedite that by, pointing this, but it hasn't even gone to the Supreme Court. I don't think it'll matter. But Dr. Thun, what are your thoughts? Will Trump be able to breeze right past this? Does this actually maybe help him? And does this in some way backfire, especially since it's not really worth it to be? Because if you take Trump out of the equation, what this looks like is some kind of a priori determination, because he has not been convicted of this. And Merrick Garland, the federal attorney, had the chance to push the charge. He has not been charged with it, right? This insurrection, or convicted of the insurrection. They had a chance to do it, and they chose not to, right? So, having not been convicted of that, and trying to take someone out from the people's ability to vote for them, if you take Trump out of the question, seems like too much of force, and that might backfire. Maybe it's just a thought, right? But what are your thoughts on all these things?
Yeah. So LAR, I think, made some really good points about the most important point. He didn't win Colorado anyway, so that doesn't even matter. And any of the states that he clearly won, they're not going to be able to pull the same thing. And I'd argue even ones that he had a narrow loss or a narrow win in, they likely won't be able to do that. So this is like virtue signaling almost, to be able to pat yourself on the back and say, see, we at least try to push back against the heathen, that kind of thing. Now I'll say this too. Trump is an interesting character. I cannot remember a situation in the past where this dude actually gets stronger. He's like the Incredible Hulk. You throw stuff at him and he gets stronger after sustaining, damage or blows, stuff that would take other folks down. Just this dude comes back and he's even more like incredible, more, unbeatable, more momentum. You can't do anything. And it seems like his opponents would have learned this by now and quit doing stuff that's giving the dude more momentum. The only thing that you can do to a Trump kind of candidate is ignore them. That's all you can do. And the thing is that they might win, but certainly you can't do what they're doing, because they've taken somebody that for all intents and purposes was not really relevant, and they've made him relevant again. and now he's probably going to win. That's what they did. That's what they did. And everything is primed for this. Everything is primed for this. It works to his, because a lot of the folks that really rock with him, and I'm not going to say all, but some of them might be the more tinfoil hat types. They might be the more kind of likely to believe that, in certain conspiracies and certain things, see, they're working against me. See, they don't want you to know the truth. See, so that's already happening. So if you have a sizable,
glad that Alex Jones is back on X, and
I'm telling, look, I'm telling you, there's a lot of stuff happening right now. There's a lot of stuff happening right now that they are, even for the fact that they are mentioning this so-called boy crisis, right? 60 Minutes doing a special on the reduction in men attending college, even stuff like that, and I'm not saying that necessarily all the people that would mention that are going to vote for Trump, but I am saying that there are certain conditions, there are certain things happening right now, and just this view that our government has continually overstepped, got us in more wars, got us in more of this. And you remember the problem with this, what I call the binary fallacy, or this duopoly, is that if the Republicans are the problem, then the Democrats must be the solution. And if the Democrats are the problem, then the Republicans must be the solution. That's the problem that you run into when you really only have two options. So, who of the Republicans, of the five people that were watching the Republican, what was it, the debate or whatever, the Republican, primary debate, of the five people that were watching it, how many of those five people think that one of those candidates has a bigger chance of winning than Trump? Maybe one. I'm just saying.
All right. There's maybe when we come back around, perhaps you can think about this particular critique of your duopoly critique. So it says, okay, duopoly, here are the problems with this, given the choices you have to make. And there will be a pragmatic view that says it is what it is, and you don't take the route of thinking the solution to one thing is the other person. But if you're going to go in with one group, let's say, you got to just pick the crap that you're willing to take on that side, right? Insofar as they have certain interests that perhaps supersede, right, in your value hierarchy, the crap that you have to take, right? So that kind of a thing, you're not going to change the two-party system anytime soon. And meanwhile, there's some influencing you can be doing. There's some shoulder kind of or elbow thrusting you can be doing in one room or the other room. But if you stay out of both, right. So that kind of a thing.
I'm not opposed to caucusing with folks, finding some common interests and collaborating with them. I'm not opposed to that. And being third party also doesn't mean that there's never a time when you would vote for a Republican or for a Democrat. You may vote for one so long as that particular one on particular issues that are, critical in nature. But as a general sort of Republicans and Democrats being the only options, and what their sort of line item stock, talking points, their issues, I just don't see how those issues are particularly of benefit to black men and boys in particular, to men and boys and generally speaking. I just don't see how they're in either party, how what it is that they're they're for, even in the stuff that they state, the clear stuff that they say. I don't see how that stuff necessarily is a benefit.
Got it. I'm quite tempted here because it's just for the I'm pulling my inner Glenn Lowry here. Some would say there were such acts as after George Floyd there was an act named after him, right? And that there were things that were in there that are good for that it was about black men, right? They would say, and it was who voted it down? It was the Republicans that voted it down. So they would say, hey, look, if you're concerned about black men and boys, let's weigh the tally on both sides, and we will find that there are differences, right? They would say, and they would point to this one act, for example, right? So that's I can imagine that being said, like right now, right? I'm sure you've heard that kind of a thing before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in some ways, I'm a little more because I see, and it's a short list. There's some social programs that I think have actually been beneficial to black people in general. And so I'm okay with those social programs. I'm not a sort of stock, any social programs I'm out are out, just totally free market, no protections, none of that. I'm not all the way there. But then there's a lot of monkeying around with, there's a lot of social reengineering that happens on the left that I have several issues with. It clearly is against our interests. And then not only is it clearly against our interests, black men and boys, that's what I'm talking about when I say our interests. Not only that, but I'm a Christian. I have a particular worldview, and there's just certain things that I'm just not going to co-sign, and I don't want to feel embarrassed. I'm not willing to sit next to you as you're, going through your prostrations and putting your chapstick on and kneeling and kissing rings and stuff. I'm not. I can't do that.
Very, very, very well. Yes, indeed. So there are things that you think supersede in your value hierarchy, and also maybe in a long-term view are more detrimental overall to the cause than the opportunistic thing you may be getting, and you're not willing to genuflect before those particular idols. 100%. Okay, understood. Now, Kaizo here, and ladies and gentlemen, by the way, we are on this first topic of Donald Trump, Section 3 of the 13th Amendment, right, which is about inciting insurrections. It has a history instituted, they say, to kind of keep out those pesky Confederates from infiltrating certain government offices. But if we want to talk about some of the cases that are kind of a general outline of what has been thrown against Trump so far is the payment of, I forget, what's her name? What's I believe Trump called her horseface once, the porn star, right? He paid off the porn star for some kind of talking thing, and it was about, well, did he pay with his personal funds or did he pay with the campaign funds? And so that's almost like impossible, So it was kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you pay with the personal, it's one thing. If you pay with the campaign, blah blah blah. There was that thing, and then also there's the classified documents, which also it's kind of Biden got hit with that too. He looking like that's kind of like a common thing. You can just imagine. It's like everybody takes stuff from the office, right? But and then there's the insurrection one, okay, and Kaizo, with regards to due process and the Supreme Court, this is a question about whether or not the Supreme Court will hold this up. Not that we know all the matters of the law here. You don't have to know the 14th Amendment and the case law that forms the legal precedence for 14th Amendment type decisions, especially the Section 3 part. Okay, but here's the thing. You are being removed from the ballot because you are saying, you're inciting insurrections, and that's against this part of the Constitution. But you have not been charged with inciting insurrections, which is a crime, by the way. It's like a separate crime, right? You know what I mean? It's like a whole thing which due process would suggest, well, if there's a whole crime here, why don't we go find out and convict this person of the crime before we hit them with the supposed consequences of having been convicted of that crime? And also, we know about the makeup of the Supreme Court, which is kind of leans conservative, even though Supreme Court Justice Thomas has kind of strategically and pragmatically kind of been unpredictable with regards to where he goes sometimes. But anyways, having said all that, what are your thoughts regarding the Supreme Court and then any other thing that we've said regarding Trump perhaps surviving this latest assault, if you will?
Okay, so there's a couple of questions. Okay, so this Supreme Court ruling, will it be on Colorado only or other places as well?
The way it works is the Supreme Court picks, right? They get to pick decisions that, cases that they want to see, or they kick it back or something like that, which basically means that it holds in that jurisdiction. But it'll be the Colorado one because this is the one that has happened. This is the particular court that has ruled in this particular way. So the Colorado court appeal and go through the appellate circuit, end up at the Supreme Court, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I think that would be an interesting case. As you mentioned, if this case law, you'd have to look at something similar, whereby there was a ruling made on something that wasn't actually charged or found guilty on. I think that would be how we could probably look at this from a logical point of view. Find similar cases, and by similar I don't mean context. I just mean situation where you've already explained it. I don't need to repeat on that hand. What do I think Trump? Okay, so someone else did mention, I believe it was LAR, right? Trump didn't really win Colorado. He didn't really get a lot of votes from there anyway. So if that's the case, would this impact his whole campaign if he was found not fit to actually run as president in that one state? So I think that's the question that you have to ask yourself. Okay, is it going to damage his general feel by the average individual? That's one. Two, is it actually going? Which I think the answer is no, because that was not one of his strongest regions. Then, if you ask about the case law, I think someone else will probably have to dig it up, compare it, and kind of see, okay, is there some kind of precedence that has happened with similar cases where someone is not allowed or barred from something, yet they themselves weren't charged for a specific. But even if that's the case, I do think, now this is just my opinion, that if you have been found, let's say, liable in the civil court, they can use that as precedent in other higher courts to make different decisions. So I'll have to look deeper on that. But my personal thinking and feeling is, I don't think this is going to stop Trump. I think Trump is going to win. Shout out to Trump.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and click that like button, share, right? Share the stream, subscribe if you have not already. And there's one legal threshold here, another legal threshold, I should say, besides the one of, well, he hasn't not been convicted yet. So there's like a due process type of pushback. The argument against, the argument to the Supreme Court to strike this down could be about due process. Hey, he has not been convicted. And then also the letter of the actual Constitution, 14th Amendment, Section 3, it's not clear that includes the president, right? So, that one would be like more of a, more like a, highly tactical word game that they might play there, because it's not quite clear that includes the president of the United States. But anyways, we shall move on. So we have mentioned, one of the interesting things, obviously, that happened in 2023 is some heightened conflicts in certain regions. Through 2023, we had the continuation of the Ukraine situation. And then since October 7th, in Gaza, things have been heating up, right? We understand that. But recently, and maybe you can give us some of maybe we can start with you, Kaiser, then we'll go around. But this Bab el-mandeb, okay, the strait over there, basically you have North Africa and the Mediterranean, and then you go over to the east, you have the Middle East, and to the southeast of that, you have the Indian Ocean. And over there, you have all these straits and all these things that, these are choke points ever since after Pangea, they've always been there. So they've always been known, these particular straits, and they're very, very important for shipping because these are choke points. Otherwise, you would have to go down through South Africa and go through around, right? So if you can visualize that, I call the South African coast there is called the Cape of Good Hope or whatever, right? You have to go through there. So this increases shipping costs by like 25%, 30%. China is affected. Europe is greatly affected. When you have people shooting rockets at ships, insurance don't want to insure your ships to pass that area. And if you lose a ship, you go bankrupt, right? That kind of a thing. So you have the Arab world, whom is very much interested in, and they're making a lot of huge investments in tech. You know, it's a big thing that they've been doing for the past decade now, and then continuing to ramp up, taking oil out of the ground, liquidating it, converting it to currency, and investing in Silicon Valley and everywhere else. They're big into venture capital. So there's all this big money and big effects down on the table. The question is, okay, this thing seems to be escalating. You have your dusty kind of East African cousins over there shooting rockets again. These Somalis and Yemeni, well, all these ninjas, right? So Kaizo, what are your thoughts about this here? Do you think that this could lead to everybody getting down on the table and be like, hey, we need to sell this thing with Palestine? Yeah. Or will it just kind of continue
this
to
is
go?
not
Go ahead.
this is not that serious. So let me give a little bit more context here. So there is a group, call them a paramilitary group, call them the leaders of Yemen, rebel group, whatever you want to call them, right? Called Houdini. Maybe got the name from Houdini. Who knows? Because they come and they disappear. But this group has actually attacked some Israel, at least one Israeli ship, and a couple other just non-Israeli ships. Now, here's the thing, right? They claim that obviously that they're doing this because of the Israel-Palestine situation, right? This is actually a protest. They're terrorizing people, but the facts are, so no ships have lost any human life yet. So they're very strategic. This does look like a very well-coordinated attack, and it is to make a statement. Now, to answer your question, Ike, will this make everyone go to the table? No, because if you look at that al-mandeb strait, it's literally where Yemen and Djibouti is. America has a military base in Djibouti. All America will do is just start using that presence in Djibouti to actually set up a military base there. Military presence there, and be able to prevent this from happening. So, yeah, I doubt this is going to lead any sort of negotiations or talks. America has been prepared for this kinds of stuff. That's why America has so many military bases. Go into Djibouti, into Kenya, Somalia. All these countries have American military presence, and specifically Djibouti has a huge American military base. So yeah, no, and it's right there at al-mandeb strait, right there, meaning, right, so the Yemenis can control their portion of the sea, right, because Yemen is right opposite that Djibouti, Yemen, Eritrea area. So they will control that area that they have on their side of the sea. Then America will control the other side of the sea. So as long as America just gets their boots down, sends people, the naval force there, they can actually legally operate in that al-mandeb area on the other side, which is bordering Djibouti and I guess parts of Eritrea. But I think what this could do is, if countries like Eritrea were intelligent, Eritrea will go and actually leverage this sort of situation with America and say, look, reduce our sanctions, we'll actually help protect your ships over here. So yeah, that is my analysis there. And if regarding Somalia has now joined East African Community. So I do believe they're going to be working closer hand with America, since East African Community is an American it's basically an
Okay,
American
I'll get
outpost.
back to you here. LER, Kaizo is saying America's got this on lock, right? Don't worry about it. Just a little skirmish back there, people shooting rockets. We'll get it under control. Begs the question why it wasn't under control. Why because it is an issue. But how long can America continue to contain this kind of thing? Because the whole backdrop of this is the Gaza situation, right? So that's really what kind of is the backdrop of this thing. And we're seeing a small kind of escalation. It's not an escalation. It's like a different set of people causing trouble in an important economic area, important to global shipping, right? And Kaizo is saying, no big deal. But what are your general thoughts about America's ability to continue to contain this thing without people actually coming down to the table, In other words, Saudi Arabia, everybody, and just kind of de-escalating, normalizing stuff, because you never know. All it takes is one blah blah blah. In other words, a $2,000 rocket, right, can cause a shit ton of BS down the line, right? And so on and so forth, right? But what are your general thoughts about America's ability to be able to contain it in the same old way indefinitely?
I think the political landscape has changed and public opinion keeps changing. I think I think America helped Ukraine because of oil, of course, helping Israel for various reasons, and then you're going to help this country because of oil. If you do all of this stuff, it starts to look like conflicting, like hypocrisy. Oh, for this group you do this, for that group you do that. Oh, but if these people, are being oppressed, you're, or 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 victims of warfare, you'll help them. But if these people are perpetuating warfare, you'll help them. So it's becoming one of those things where worldviews start getting worse and people's opinions start changing. And I think America has the biggest issue globally is like what happens when the world decides to be as wishy-washy as America when it comes to foreign politics,
How do you think
and
Biden has done so far with foreign policy and handling these kind of, if you throw Biden in there in terms of whether it's a question of style or in particular is what he has done in Ukraine or wherever else, how do you think Biden has done with regards to foreign policy?
in all honesty, thinking about it, what a president in my lifetime has done good with foreign policy.
Some would say that in terms of not doing crap, which is one good thing, right? In other words, don't get us into new wars, right? And bring some people to the table and stop acting like we're all great and say things such as, "Hey, we've done some killing too," and go talk to Kim Jong Un and negotiate certain treaties
Yeah.
in the Middle East, which was done by Jared Kushner. Some would say Donald Trump in his first term, with regards to foreign policy, not making things worse and actually going out there and saying, "Hey, let's talk," right, as opposed to some kind of self righteousness that he might have done some, So you
Yeah, he
might
took a lot of
contrast that
heat.
with
Yeah, he took a
And
lot of heat for meeting for what is it with Kim Jong Un
Kim Jong Un. Yeah.
without precondition. That
and
whole business. Yeah.
and the issue with that is what the things that he did in foreign policy is the very things he were against before he became president.
Yeah.
So it's like, unfortunately, in his application, he did a good thing, but he can still be looked at as an opportunist. It's like, oh, didn't you say you wasn't going to do this? Oh, didn't you say it was wrong when he was going to do this? Oh, but now you do it. It becomes a lot of like, unfortunately, even with him, and you're right, like as far as not messing up stuff more, he's cool on that. But him as a person, he's rubbed a lot of countries the wrong way in his business practices outside of being president. So
Um, yeah, that's interesting, Dr. Thorne. What are your thoughts about that? Because there was the personality of Trump with regards to foreign policy, and then there are other presidents like, let's say, Biden. But within that personality that LAR has critiqued, there is this kind of, oh, you're an opportunist. You say one thing, you come in and you do something else. One way to describe that is when you are, you're just you're an opportunist, and that's what you've always been. You're opportunistic entrepreneur type. That's what you're
Mhm.
known for. And then B, when you come into a situation and you ask certain fundamental questions, you completely change your thinking. For example, he came in and this is the kind of guy that'll ask questions like, why are we still in NATO? What the hell is NATO? Why are these people not paying? You remember those types of things that he said, right? And everyone's like, oh,
Mhm.
how can you say that? It's like, it's NATO. Like, it was almost like it's the name of some god that you're not supposed to question, right? NATO exists, and we have obligations and blah blah blah. So he typically came in like let's say Elon Musk comes into Twitter and just asks some fundamental question, and then when you get those certain answers, you might just be like, hey, I changed my mind. I'm gonna go talk to this person. I'm gonna go do this, do that, whatever. I'm just throwing a bunch of stuff there on the wall. But the main question still is, with regards to foreign policy, what are your thoughts about Biden and then maybe Trump and all that?
It's interesting. I think I would get along with Biden, like on a one-on-one basis, having a conversation, and likely having someone maybe be a little more nuanced and knowledgeable about aspects of the arts. And I think I would vibe more with him on that. And the same thing with, and I said the same thing about Barack Obama. I think I would get along well with. I think we'd have a lot to talk about. We disagree on a bunch of political stuff, but if we didn't talk politics, I think we'd have a lot of things to agree on. I don't think that would necessarily be the case with Trump. I don't get the sense that I would, just based on what I know about him and the way that he communicates, I don't know if I would just get irritated by this, just the way that he communicates, not his iconoclastic sort of disposition, because I actually like collaborating with iconoclasts. It's interesting because it sort of sharpens my own sense of things. And though I probably appear to be, a traditionalist, I'm not actually a traditionalist, right? I'm more of an intuitive and more of kind of willing to ask questions and have conversations and change my perspective and position on things, and have done so several times over time. Traditionalists don't tend to make huge transitions over time. They tend to stay pretty stuck. So there's an aspect of me, I think, that would appreciate Trump, but when I try to talk about certain nuanced kind of topics, I think I would be irritated either by his lack of knowledge of certain things, or just maybe the way that he would approach certain things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, I have to say that it seems to me that the more effective person, at least at not effective president, at least at not getting us in more trouble, clearly has been Trump. During his time, he clearly got us in less issues, and the president before him and after him were involved in all kinds of stuff. And perhaps they even in their conversation were able to be more nuanced and subtle with the way that they describe things. But when you look at the outcome actually matters, right? The outcome, in not that the way that you get to the outcome, the way that you treat people with respect, actually understanding details, and not that stuff is unimportant. Of course it is, but it's mostly important because usually a command of those things will lead to better outcomes. That's why that stuff is valuable. But if you see a situation, which obviously is an anomaly, with this dude that doesn't seem to have that sort of subtlety and just comes in and breaks stuff, and then that actually ends up being more effective in getting us in less trouble than these guys that have all of this command and control of all of this subtlety. Trump is he's just a strange. He just has a. It's like I was saying. He's the only president I can think of, or politician, that the kinds of stuff that has come after him just makes him stronger. And I'm not even sure that he's aware, of like the significance of certain things that he does. He just goes and does stuff that seems right to him. I don't need to call into question people's sense of right and wrong, I might disagree with them, but their sincerity. I don't need to call into question their sincerity. I could still say, I think that Biden and Obama were sincere. I could say that I think that generally they were good people, but that I just disagree with their policy. It's not necessary for me to demonize them to also disagree with them and show that their policy is trash, you know. But yeah, it's an interesting sort of dynamic. There was an aspect of your question that I was circling around to, and I sort of forgot where I was headed. Can you restate the last part of your question?
Okay. I don't know where I started and where I ended, but basically, we have foreign policy and we have behavior such as Trump that keep us out of those things.
I remember now. So here's some point I wanted to make, and this sort of goes to what LAR was saying. It's sort of a response to what LAR was saying. He's talking about how they'll be against something, and then they get in office and they do exactly the opposite thing, and like this. And we see this all the time, right? Now, I think that the surface way to read this, and this doesn't necessarily mean that the surface way to read this is wrong. But the surface way to read this is all these guys they're all hypocrites. You know, they're all flip-floppers. Somebody's tightening them up. Somebody gave them a deal. They got inside and somebody had a pile of money and they all of a sudden changed their perspective. I think that's the surface level to look at it. Not to say that that's not valid, and even not even to say that that's not valid most of the time. It could be valid most of the time. You know, I'm pretty cynical, so I might say that it's probably valid most of the time. But I also think that we have to give people an opportunity to actually change their mind once they are privy to different information. If you were occupying that office, then you know all kinds of stuff that you had no knowledge of prior. You had no understanding of prior. And it's also one of the reasons why you should be careful criticizing certain leaders when you don't understand all of the factors involved. Because when you get in there and then they start telling you all of this stuff that you had no idea about, and it could be some stuff way out in left field. They could be like, you know what? Actually, there's aliens on Mars. And, and they've actually been kind of running things here because they're like way more advanced than us. And they
Warren
kind of
Buffett
wanted
is a
to
representative.
What? Say it again.
And Warren Buffett is a representative, and you're like,
yeah, right.
Wasn't thinking of him, but
I'm just saying that you get in that office, you get in certain positions, and you didn't know what the factors are, and I can attest to that. Just in my own leadership roles, where prior to being in a certain position, I had certain views, and I could be pretty critical of what was going on, and then I get inside, I'm like, oh snap. Now I know why this cat was doing this because he has to deal with this, and this other person over here too. And, regardless as to what you want to say, money still kind of makes the thing work. So I can't really give up this big pile of money over here. And it's not necessarily because you're money hungry. It's just because you realize that if I don't take that pile of money, this huge other issue is going to emerge. And then that's going to destroy, it's so maybe it's better to take the money. So I'm just saying.
Sounds like a justification for your greed there, Dr. Thunder. But I'm with you. It's always better to take the money. But so Kaizo, so we have Trump's personality. That's something I want to circle around here for a second. But also there's this idea of going in there with a scalpel versus, in other words, a panther in a china shop versus the bull in the china shop, right? So you have a panther, like, a cat. He goes in and he strategically knocks down all the things that are wrong with the system and blah, blah, blah. But typically, that's not how things work, especially in human politics, because what's going to typically happen is there's going to be all these constraints such as the ones that Dr. Thunder described as to why you can't take out that everyone from outside is like, just push the red button. Why don't they push the red button? And then you get in there like, oh, because this guy promised this and this and this, and that's how we can push the red button. So they're like, okay, well, we need somebody who's super skillful, who can push the red button while holding all these other things. But typically, you don't get that. You get somebody who comes in, breaks the whole machine, right? Things have to get scattered, and then you have to rebuild. That's typically how the kind of change that people want happens in organizations. You don't get this kind of scalpel precision panther in a china shop. You typically just get a bull in the china shop to break a few other things other than the red button. But anyways, regarding Trump's personality, Dr. Thunder and Eliar have kind of said a little bit about it there. What are your thoughts? He's definitely, yeah, and I agree with Dr. Thunder. It's not the guy I'm going to be, I picture myself sitting around with having deep conversations. He doesn't seem like a talk type of guy, right? Even though, by the way, one amazing thing he has done, he's raised a pretty good family. His children are pretty intelligent and high level and whatnot. Love him or hate him, right? Families could be way worse. his his personal behavior aside, I think his kids are pretty good, and his Jared Kushner character is actually pretty decent too. He did some good things in the Middle East, and anyways, what are your assessments of Trump? Do you like him? Would you hang out with him? Would you drink a beer with him? Is he some kind of crazy um, TE type that's kind of what are your thoughts?
Yeah, great question. So for me, it depends on it depends on the mood that I'm in that moment, but I can actually kind of generalize it. I'm not gonna go try and have a philosophical conversation with Trump about nuances, right? Surrounding culture, race, ethnicity, and all these other aspects of life, or in a position that he's in, or economics, or anything. Because I don't think that's the kind of guy he is. He doesn't appear to be able to be very verbose, right? He's not that guy. However, he is a troll. I am also a troll. So I think we would actually sit around a fire, roasting Africans, right, and chicken, and Black Americans and all that stuff, and enjoying and having a great time. You know, we'll be calling these people
Talking about shithole
SH.
countries and
Exactly,
yeah.
like
What have
I
you
think
got
I'd
to
have a great
lose?
time with Trump. Yeah, go ahead.
These kids.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead. So that's your general assessment.
Yeah.
You generally have a good time with him, but okay, go ahead. Land the
I
plane.
think, yeah, if I go on my troll mode, I definitely would have a great conversation. But if it's like me trying to engage him intellectually, no, the guy's not an intellectual. He's good at moving things around his life and becoming rich, but he's not an intellectual. So there'll be no fruit coming from an in-depth analysis of, let's say, China. He's going to be like, man, let's have a meeting with Xi Jinping. Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong, but that's all that's going to come out of that conversation.
Yeah, you just yeah. And you need, anyways. It's interesting, right? In these organizations, again, it's almost like and organizations, and especially when you're trying to make certain breakthroughs and change, you do need this uh bull in a pocket type stuff where you can release the bull because you want a Trump in that meeting with Xi Jinping, right? You might have somebody else there too, but you want him there because we know, like we understand, and it doesn't have to be Trump himself. I'm talking about that particular type, which he's a superlative example, which is the bullshitter, which people like. People don't like being lied to, but they love a good bullshitter, right? A good car salesman that is still a decent person. You're like, hey, it's cool. But when certain politicians come out and lie to you and have a tear in their eye, I think that's the one that people really don't like. But Eliar, your thoughts on the person himself, right? Uh, Trump. Will you hang out with Trump versus Bush? Uh, what do you think? Is he hated by you, or what do you think of Trump?
I wouldn't hang out with none of them mother. But no, I don't hate
Are
any
you
of
sure
those
you don't
people. I really,
you don't want to call Africans low IQ and shit whole countries? I know you're Black American. You love that stuff.
Kaiser, your inner sellout loves that, not me. Okay, you should hang out with Trump. You know, because he could have a Muslim wife, and then a Christian wife, and then a
Uh
Jewish
oh.
wife, and
Uh
then
oh.
yeah. Y'all are flip flopper twins. Y'all super flip floppers activate. But personally, no, I don't. All of these people are BS artists. I'm not gonna sit here and act like I want to sit by a person who's going to say something and lie to my face and then walk off. And I go, you know what? I ought to punch him in his face now. You know, like those are not people that like politicians are like some of the most they like oh you know how they make the old gangster movies, the old mafia movies. They're no different than those old bosses, old fat punks who would never do anything to you, but would call somebody in the room, get him when he not looking. I don't like him. I don't like people like that. Okay, so no, but can he run this country? Yeah, all of them could run the country. I mean, is this country gonna go anywhere better? No, it's just gonna go in a. It's gonna. I hate to say it this way. What America is looking for is America to go down the way you would want it to go down. Nobody's looking for improvement. So Trump is just a. Right now I would rather it go down the way he does it. Same thing with Biden. The people I would rather it go down the way he does it because none of these people have fixed a damn thing in their lives. None of them. Think about it. Since I was a child, the smartest president that I could think of at this particular point, I would consider is Jimmy Carter. You know why? Because after he got kicked out of, after they turned on him, it took the country 20 years to go, the things he was talking about doing would have actually had made us money and we'd have been straight. It took this country, it's more than 20 years. It was like 30 something years. America is not looking for anything great. It's not. Would I hang out with Obama? No. How many people Obama shook hands with and said were cool and they got him shot? No, same thing. No, thank you.
Well put there. Now I want to. Something else that happened this year was Mr. Sam Bankman-Fried actually got convicted. He hasn't been sentenced yet. Maybe that's one we can kind of maybe project on. But remember, we covered the whole thing. We had several episodes on which we talked about FTX. He went in there. He didn't really give a good performance. He didn't really have a leg to stand on to begin with, right? But the angle that he played, from what I saw and you kind of read through about the trial, was he tried to play this. I'm this very absent-minded genius guy that I just I don't know what's going on, and this money in this account, and yeah, maybe I opened that account, maybe I told him to do that, yeah, maybe I did, but it didn't work, and he got convicted, and he's facing a lot of years, right? And
I'm sorry,
were you
I
surprised?
gotta ask the question. I'm sorry,
Go
but
ahead.
I gotta ask the question. Just because it's America, is he still in custody?
Yes, he's actually in jail. Yeah, he's being held
Okay.
until,
Okay.
and he will be held. Yeah.
Okay.
He during the trial, he did have the house arrest thing as kind of where he started from the very beginning. He violated certain things, used computers in certain ways, tried to do certain types of things, sell certain things he shouldn't be selling, whatever. He couldn't help himself.
Yeah.
and
Like,
then they
what
got
about
him in.
that
But
black man? What was his name?
which black man? You talking about a
Like
scammer of some
Jonathan,
sort?
right? I mean, uh, no, the other black
Oh,
man, Jonathan. What was his face again?
I know who you're talking
Yeah, I
about, but
think Doctor
you have to go ahead.
Sandra, you know about Jonathan.
Wait,
What's his
wait,
name
wait,
anyway?
wait.
The guy
Kaiser,
from Pang, right?
Kaiser, stop it. Stop it. You trying to compare Jonathan Majors to Sam Bankman-Fried? Are you? They're not even in the same stratosphere.
Yeah, but he shouldn't be black women. I mean, white women.
You
So
know
is
what?
Carolyn Ellison taking Sam Bankman-Fried down the same as is it? What is your thing here while you're eating your
Yeah.
stupid
So
Masai goat
okay,
meat or whatever the hell
here's
you
the
guys
thing,
eat over
right?
there?
High-ranking New York, New York State attorney generals are black men. Now, why did they go and attack another black man who was up on the coming, right? He was a rising movie star. I actually saw his movies before Disney even picked him up, right? There was a lot of movies where it was actually purely black. Um, like for example, Lovecraft Country. That was an interesting movie. It was about racism as well, and it was a little bit of fantasy. So how did he end up from there to choosing Becky? Then Becky literally betrays him and then he loses everything. Right, $20 million contract by Marvel gone. All the investors incentives that he had gone. Like, all I'm saying is, right, you can hate on Keisha all you want, but Becky ain't no better. So I think, in a way, this is karma.
Kaizo, do you know how much money Sam Bankman-Fried screwed people out of?
Couple billion, I guess.
You know what? You when you go to sleep, you dream of a white Jesus, don't you? Just tell the truth.
Okay. So I do get your point, Elara. You shouldn't put them in the same skin, but I do think it's just okay. The reason I brought him up is, black men should be extremely careful in what they do, because if you think about it, as you mentioned, that white man, if he just didn't screw as many people over, he wouldn't have had that trial against him. I agree with you on that one. And this black man, all he did is get involved with Becky, right? And his whole life got screwed over. So honestly, I just say, look, let's stop hating on Keisha, and let's you have to rebuild, man, because Becky ain't trustworthy.
Do you think you can pull off what Sam Bankman-Fried pulled off?
Probably,
That is
probably not, right?
Enron level scamming. That's Enron level scamming. You gonna compare that to a dude running away from a drunk chick at night in New York?
Right.
He tried to borrow money
Yeah.
from himself that didn't exist.
No comment on that one. I've done similar things
As a,
before
as
in the
a, as
past, so
a, as a true libertarian, I almost want to congratulate him on that move there, Sam Bankman, for like, hey, out there, these people by fiat decree the allocation and movement of
you know
liquidity and
how, like,
movement of resources. I shall.
like, how African names have like meaning behind them. So like in countries like Nigeria where people are poor, they'll name their kids something like Victory
It would have
or
been great if he actually
Mercedes.
was successful with that name, and the Sam Bankman
Right.
Fried and all that kind of. The thing is, he was actually kind of. In other words, the story whereby he got away with it is not so crazy. In other words, if let's say what the Fed is doing right now, where they've paused the interest rates increase, and they're going to start cutting next year. If that happened sooner, right? He would not have this illiquidity insolvency story, right? Would not have happened. And Solana, which was one of the things that he held, what's going on with Solana right now, Kaizo, right? So he has all these things he was holding, which would could have gotten inflated again. He could have gotten away with all kinds of shenanigans, creating money out of thin air to give to Barbara Boxer, and well, she's no longer around anymore.
Well, it's just timing. The issue was timing, because if you're still holding on Solana, something magical could have happened, but he was playing with too much money at that time, and also timing. Like people looking into it. I think that's what took him down. He got too greedy.
Dr.
Yeah,
Thon, did you
that's
think he was
always.
going to get
It seems like
convicted?
that's always what gets them. It's just they're too greedy. If they just get out, okay, I got 500 million. Okay, I'm out. That's that. Hey, that's it. But nah, they
The
got to
thing
go
crazy
for
about
this.
him is it's not even
No.
get out. It's like he could just it's because he doesn't. It's not like he's got to like stop and run or do. It's just like you could just stop there, right? Because he had two legit companies going, right? It's not like they
Yeah.
weren't real. There wasn't real customers and stuff like that. Like, hey, maybe you play a little trick here, but you pay off your technical debt, right? You pay that off. Make sure you get away with it once. Okay, cool. I know that I can do a $500 million little thing here to get me over something. Blah blah blah. But when you just be like, hey, I'm going to just take it to the max, let's just go for billions. Why not?
Nobody but a white person can pull that off, where you can have a multi-billion-dollar company with no checks and balances, and people go, "Oh, I trust you. I believe you." Like no, who at the company is telling you this is messed up? What do you mean? Who is looking at this? Who? I never hired anybody. It's me and me and me. Nobody's telling me this is bad business. It's all my business. And the worst part about it is, You realize people were trying to sue the people that he paid for commercials? They didn't even try to sue him.
Yeah.
Mark Wahlberg, you're guilty. Shaq, you're guilty. Wait a minute now. What about the
Yeah,
guy that
Mr.
just defrauded you?
Wonderful, many other influencers and such like that that took money to. Yeah, so he got everyone involved. But it's funny how none of the Congress people or none of that money got brought up though. Like no names, no particular names were mentioned in that regard. But Dr. Thunder, do you think were you surprised that he got convicted? And I mean, because this is justice, right? I'm sure people would have been like, oh, he's white. I mean, LAR has been saying now, oh, he got away with it because he's white. Well, he got convicted, so that's a good thing, right, LAR? But Dr. Thunder, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm not surprised that he got convicted because it was too much money. It's too prominent, and they do want to at least appear to be penalizing like egregious, acts. So I'm not surprised by that. Now there's probably half a dozen other dudes. Maybe they didn't take as much money that have gotten away with, with it. But this was it was too prominent it was too prominent, and you were taking money from too many powerful, wealthy people, and they weren't going to let that happen. So that's just how it works.
The thing is, Binance is the largest.
So I think you hit.
And I'll let you go ahead here, Kaiser. But Binance is the largest because you were talking about the prominence and such. And what was the difference between Binance and FTX? And by the way, CZ of Binance is waiting sentencing, and he had to pay $4 billion, blah blah blah, and do certain things. In other words, they roped him in too, but his company did not disappear, right? So he did shady stuff. Like he got caught on what they call anti-money laundering, know your customer, AMLs, CYO, whatever. Basically, you're not supposed to give liquidity to certain people, maybe the terrorist organizations or, all that stuff, including some people perhaps that shouldn't be on that list. In other words, people that United States just decided don't want to have free access to, movement of their money, right? So he was letting them do that, this CZ character, including certain other things that, similar to what Sam Bankman-Fried was doing, but he made sure his accounting was tight. Like he run a organization with real accountants, not this crazy girlfriend from Stanford or whatever, right? Like, so he had things nice, tight, set up regulatory wise, and then he was just collecting shady stuff in the back. And it seems like if you do that, they kind of let you get it. You're like, let's give you a slap in the wrist. Hey, give me $4 billion back, right? But you're doing the same thing that we all are doing. As long as you keep the front nice and neat and you have all the right forms correct and everything is tight, and outside third-party auditor and all that kind of stuff is good, then you can do some crimes. But anyways, I interrupted a couple of people. I think Kaiser was going to say something, and also Dr. Thunderwood, you were in the middle of saying.
Yeah, I think Dr. Thunder said something interesting about he pissed off powerful people. So, okay, sure, there is the the attorneys, attorney general. There's certain people who have certain interested investment to take you down because of their careers, but sometimes it really is conspiracy. It really is. Okay, there's these people here that you took money from, and the thing is, when people are using your platform, you don't have an exact idea of the kinds of people that are investing in your platform at all the times, unless you check it and you even break some other sort of rules of information. So yeah, I actually do definitely see your point, Dr. Thunder. I do think he pissed off the wrong type of extremely powerful people, that this whole thing went so fast, came in light the way it did, the way this whole thing kind of approached. Because if it was just simply, loads of poor people lost their money, I don't think it would have happened as fast as it did. And perhaps you would have been able to actually magically make that money reappear through other means. So yeah, very, very good point.
Yeah, I mean, a theory is Trump wins and pardons Sam Bankman-Fried. Well, I don't know.
Oh, man.
Then you really
but
know.
first he pardons a bunch more black people. He does that first, then he gets freed.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kodak Black is messing up. What are your thoughts? I don't know if you're following it, LAR, if you're following Kodak Black lately or whatever. I mean, he got a Trump pardon, which is a big deal. Presidential kind of thing. It's not a small thing. But lately, he's been getting caught still with, you know, I think he was like sleeping in the car, obviously, you know, drugged up on something, right? Just in traffic, not just in the car, like on the red light on between 4th and Main or whatever, just sleeping there. What are your thoughts about the whole Kodak Black situation, LAR?
I'm gonna take my Tariq Nasheed moment. He is not FBA. Talks to the Haitians about that. But you know, it's just a Florida boy doing Florida stuff. Like, who would? Okay, let me just say this and be just trifling about it. I'm sorry. Have you looked at all of these rappers? Which one of them isn't a dope head? Your favorite rapper is like one step away from being a crack addict. I don't listen to that dude. I think he's stupid. Not only stupid, I think he's soft and weak. I don't trust anybody that's bad built with tattoos on their face.
If you're gonna put tattoos on your face, you better hit the gym, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I don't trust nobody like that. So no, like, am I surprised? No, it's a bunch of all of these rappers, whether they be for the most part, I would say 30 something and under, they're all drug addicts. And you can tell that, truth be told, they're like really suburban kids who thought they was gonna be the most gangster rapper by getting tattooed up and mean mugging and getting some gold teeth. But if you look into their backstories, they've been little silver spoon kids. I'm not into these clowns.
Dr. Thunder, did you notice that growing up, or in other words, it might not be, you know, I know generally speaking where you grew up and how you grew up, so it's probably not, oh, you saw some neighborhood black suburban kids that decided to start selling drugs at some point or something like that. And I think the crack era, in terms of being a teenager during the crack era, would perhaps slightly before your time. I don't know. But this whole question of suburban kids then going and, you know, back into the hood because of the lifestyle and the girls or the whatever, and getting caught up in that whole thing when it's not really their life.
Yeah, you know, so now I have respect for Ice Cube, who Ice Cube has become. But some folks were kind of look at Ice Cube like, look, you grew up in the suburbs, you had everything, you know. You know, how much of this sort of you know, mean mugging that LAR was talking about, how much of that stuff was real and how much of that was just put on for the label, you know. Now the thing is that it was, I mean, it worked, whatever it was. Now I think because it worked, I think maybe that encouraged others to try the same approach, and perhaps nuance is different, style is different, and maybe you can argue that from an objective perspective, the musical aspect of what they were doing is worse now, but it's kind of an attempt to do the same thing. So I don't know. That's a thing. And yeah, I mean, I grew up, you know, not in the suburbs. I grew up in the country. So that was a different thing, and there was none of that going on where I grew up. Now, in the school system that I went to, sure, there were a few that were like, "Hey, I'm gonna be gangster," and they went ahead and got associated with like an actual gang that actually was a pretty dangerous gang in a neighboring city, we'll say. So yeah, I mean that seems to be something that folks just have a taste for that. And it doesn't help that uh, you know girls seem to be attracted to that. So there seems to be like a payoff that at least they believe that they will get a reward from getting this, street cred. And unfortunately, that aspect of the music industry has publicized, has glamorized, that sort of thinking. I mean, you think back at all of these music videos, and of course they just tend to double down on girls love that, right? Because you got a bunch of women in these videos with no clothes on, and these folks that are actually, they're probably lames, but wait a minute, what does this do? What is this term? I heard hoodservative, who he himself apparently recently discovered this term. I on a show last week, I saw thug maxing. I don't know if you know.
Hey,
Wait one second. What?
Black people.
I'm sorry. Thug maxing. So basically what thug maxing is, and that's basically what this is, what we're talking about. It's lames, educated lames, dudes that grew up in the country, and they're like, man, I'm tired of not getting any play. So what gets play? Okay, well, if you're a thug, if you selling drugs, if you doing X, Y, and Z, it seems like you get play. So what they do is they will, whoever the latest rapper is, whoever the latest, hood ninja that's getting, most of the pub, most of the notoriety, basically you just figure out how to talk like this cat, how to look like this cat, tattoos and all, whatever it is, dress and all, and you act like you don't care, and a certain kind of woman is just can't resist that. So there you go, thug maxing. This is I mean, hey, so you don't have swag, but you smart though, right? Because you a lame, you an educated lame, you smart. So you just figure out the things that are happening, and there you go. You can fake that.
So Kaizo, it seems like for the past few minutes we've been describing you, Kaizo. Maybe you can give us the Black British perspective on how you were thug maxing out there, trying to be like the Jamaicans, trying to be the roadman, rude boy.
Yeah,
bad man thing. So what is your experience with regards to, you suburban kids trying to be hard and whatnot? Did you have friends that fell in the wrong crowd, got stabbed up?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so in the
I need
UK,
a do-rag.
when we first,
I need a do-rag.
yeah, so for us actually in the UK, first of all, when it came to thug maxing, I had to get rid of my dusty African accent, right? I was still out here sounding like Kuta Kinte's left twin's toe, right? When I first went there, I was like, hello, I am Kaizo. How are you doing? Oh. That had to go, right? I had to, start using like thug language. I had to start using the language. So even the way I speak now, exactly, even the way I speak, exactly, right? Even the way I speak right now is rather refined. But I had to go be like, what's going in? What's going in, blood? You looking fine over there, yeah? Yeah. Man them. Yeah,
So
I
so
had to
you
start
did.
learning all these terms.
So you learned how to watch Top Boys? What you telling me?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, I had to watch that, learn all the lingos, because I was just like, man, this is a different culture. So I was like,
Yeah, Kaizo, there's no S on lingo.
oh, I see. And
Yeah,
also, to be honest, it didn't really work,
lingo
right?
is both singular and plural.
Interesting. And it didn't really work because in the end, black women didn't really like me. The only women who were dating me were Indian women, white women, and maybe Somali women. Everyone else was like, nah.
You mean to tell
So
me
for
you
white
African,
women,
but you ain't black enough?
see, that's the thing, right? So for the white women, they found me interesting because they thought I was a thug just because I was black. So I could use that black card to be a
The
thug.
thug maxim did
So
work.
wait a minute.
Demographics.
So you could fool the white girls, but you couldn't fool the sisters.
Exactly. The sisters can be fooled, right? And then now for the Somali women, because they're very Muslim, right? I was better option than Abdi. Abdi was out here reading them a Quran. You must wear your hijab and cover yourself. So I was going through the the areas where I was the baddest baddest guy.
He was the baddest guy.
I'm just curious. Have you ever shot a gun in your life?
No, I don't think so.
Boy, this thug maxim is real. You could be a rapper.
Right. There it is.
Yeah, I guess it's real. The Nigerians used to do it too when they first moved to the UK because they had like heavy, thick accents. But then they broke free with Afro beats. So that now being a Nigerian gangster was now more cool than being a Caribbean gangster at some point.
They're Nigerian gangsters.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Did you say Arabian gangster? Would you talk about Prince of Persia? That's a video game.
All right. No. It was Nigerian gangsters. They'll be like, "Give me your money. I must have your money right now." Yeah. I mean, yeah. So it was interesting. But there was also a culture war between the blacks, right? The Caribbeans and the Africans had a big war involving knives, and then in the end, we all won. Afrobeats kind of put everyone together into like the black category.
We won.
So the Nigerians came and saved you. You just the Caribbeans and
Yeah.
oval-head Somali.
Yeah. So
Wait a minute.
adult supervision says.
What
Yeah,
side did you
adult
choose? Did
supervision
you
said.
choose the African side or the Caribbean side?
Ooh, I actually pretended I was Caribbean for a while because like I had the accent, and I cut off my nappy hair and started growing waves as adult supervision said. So yeah, I joined the Caribbean.
Slow down. What accent did you have that's Caribbean? And saying I cut off my nappy hair to be Caribbean to get waves. What the hell was you hanging out with?
That British Caribbean is a totally different thing, sir.
Oh yeah, it's not the Asians. It ain't no Haitians. No, we didn't have Haitians. We had like the admixed ones. No Haitians in the UK. It was all the Barbadians. Sorry, Asians. Yeah, Grenada, Trinidad, those kinds of people, Jamaicans, and
Okay, all right.
Not adding up for LARs. Like, how do you cut your hair to be a Jamaican? Right? That's like the first like, whoa, like, aren't you supposed to grow out your hair to be a Jamaican? And what accent are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
A lot of the thing is, a lot of the slang that you hear in the London slang, right? LAR is all Caribbean slang, but it's just with an English accent.
I get that. I definitely get that. I'm just trying to figure out, like, Kaizo, how if you bald headed, how you fit in?
Okay. So yeah, okay. I'll explain, right? the Africans had really bad hair, right? Africans look like lices, like there was like 5-story lice hair on their head, like it was big nappy hair. So when you cut that off and then you start growing waves, you start looking more like a black person rather than an African. So it really actually helped.
You see, this is how I know something's wrong. You don't grow waves. Nobody
No, okay,
grows waves.
okay, but you have to cut it off, then start combing for for weeks and stuff.
You know, you go home, you rub you buy those creams they try to sell you about. We all did it. Come
Oh my God.
I ain't do that.
So Spellcaster asks, how does a normal Brit sound? So I sound like the way I sound now is probably the
Blue
closest
magic.
to a southeast British person so far. But some African comes out sometimes because I've been living in Africa for 2 years now. So, it's slowly degenerating a little bit. But yeah, this is a typical southeast British accent. The Jamaicans will be like, Wagwan blood? What you talking about? You want a Riz? Those kinds of people.
Where's the food?
We not have that.
Oh, actually, Ike used to sell food at some point, right?
What do you mean? Work at a restaurant? You mean? Or
Yeah.
where? Which country? Under what circumstances? I don't understand. I'm sorry.
Don't need to clarify on air.
Right.
Okay.
The food you snort with a straw. That's it.
Yeah, LAR is being educated by the transcontinental thug maxing. Ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah.
as we wind down 2023. As we wind down 2023 indeed. So we're gonna start giving our closing thoughts here on a myriad of topics, ladies and gentlemen, just to kind of refresh ourselves here. Okay. Basically, stoking an insurrection in January 2021. Donald Trump, that is, and Colorado Supreme Court has said, hey, you do not get to run for president again. We've removed you from the 2024 ballot, right? And basically, this will be destined for the Supreme Court. In the meantime, it's being cited by voters and politicians in a variety of states who are seeking to use the 14th Amendment insurrection clause to kick Trump out of the ballot in other states as well. Okay, basically that clause, the insurrection clause, states that anyone who engages in insurrection or rebellion after taking an oath to support the Constitution. In other words, it's kind of like, because in a way, it's also written to kind of keep out, because I mean, the whole United States project was an insurrection, right? Right? Like that's kind of how it got started. So they wrote it in a certain way where it's like, George Washington is not an insurrectionist, but it's after you take an oath and then you do the blah 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 blah, and it is said to kind of keep out certain Confederate people. And the question is, well, how are things going to turn out for Trump? So we're going to wait and see how that goes. The overall consensus seems to be that, hey, it doesn't really matter anyway since it's Colorado. Trump will probably win the primary, and he has a good chance of winning the presidency. The due process will still go through with the Supreme Court, and there is a chance that it will be struck down given the makeup of the court there versus the makeup of the Colorado Supreme Court, whom are mainly Democrat elected and all those other kinds of things, ladies and gentlemen. But Kaiser, what are your closing thoughts, your parting remarks as we finish this last show of the year? Okay, the last show of the year, case closed, highest level conversation, most relevant topics, all-star panel.
Yeah, so I say
go ahead.
Trump is going to be okay. I do see white privilege. As you know, we saw what happened to Jonathan. We realized that actually, if you're white in America, you'll be all right, according to LAR. So yeah, Trump is great. He's going to be fine. In topics regarding the whole, Gaza and a little strip of land, as well, what Israel's been doing with Gaza. I don't think this whole situation that's been unfolding with Houdini over there in Yemen is going to actually cause any issues. As I mentioned earlier, what we'll see is more American troops along Djibouti, Kenya, and that region, so that they can strengthen the American naval forces there, so that ships are remaining strong. Yeah. So what I see coming into 2024 is a few things. I do see. I do agree with Eliar's point, whereby America is beginning to lose soft power, right? So because of their hypocrisies on how they actually deal with different types of people, regardless of aggressor versus victim, in such few words. So America will lose soft power, and if they're not careful, China will regain it because China is investing in Africa, while America is playing an outdated imperialist nation sort of power. So we'll see that unfolding in the next year. What I see with crypto, things like Solana is going to start increasing. And this is my prediction. It's a long-term prediction, next 5 years or so. But as Web3 starts to take shape and take hold, and actually create a marketplace, right, where things are traded, things that people can use that are traded, I believe that's going to be not the revolution of cryptocurrencies and tokens and smart contracts.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. $500,000 Bitcoin in 5 years, says Kaiser. Anyways. And by the way, it's such an irony that the place in Africa that has the highest concentration of American bases, the place in Africa that has that is a place called Djibouti, and the whole
The booty of Africa.
yeah
The Chinese
they
is there,
stuff
Americans, French, like
they
so
stuff
many.
yeah, everything is in Djibouti. It's, I'm telling you, we're living in a simulation, man. These are all the proofs right here. Someone is writing this stuff.
You got Sam Bankman,
Anyways,
he's no longer freed. Now you got Djibouti on the basis.
so
It's like, hey man, bro, what base have you got to? I got to third base.
indeed, as Elon Musk says, fate favors irony and comedy. So, Eliar, what are your closing thoughts, final parting words for the crowd here, end of 2023?
Well, get ready for a shit show in 2024. That's what's gonna happen. Like, it has nothing to do with the politics. It has nothing to do with Trump. Just if you can't see the writing on the wall, the world is changing. And right now, the people who are winning aren't winning as much. As the Kaiser was talking, the crypto thing, it's going to be interesting because people like Bankman Fried really screwed a lot of people. But I keep saying this with the dollar and BRICS, it's like, yo, crypto is like on the cusp of, when they keep saying it's a bull run in 2025. If people don't get on, if people don't get on to that at some point, that might be one of the last bastions of wealth. But on top of all of that, just got to be said, you can be concerned about the world, but you need to be concerned about yourself, because the world is setting up to screw you majorly. So if you don't pay attention to what's going on around you in every way, whether it be political, whether it be food, whether it be transportation, whether it be financially, you might want to pay attention that people are trying to put their foot on your neck in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So
Well
that's
said,
it.
sir. Well said. Shout out to you, Dr. Thunder. Yes, LAR, as Leon Trotsky said, I'm paraphrasing now. Even if you're not interested in the world is interested in you. Or he said, even if you're not interested in the world, doesn't mean that the world is not interested in you. Yes, the Matrix need that human heat. They need you for the battery system, right? You can't just hide. But Dr. Thunder, how's it going? What are the latest? You don't have a tinfoil hat. You do have a Black Santa hat, but it'll do. You could comment on anything you will, including any crazy conspiracy theories you guys have been cooking up in the lab over there.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't wear the tinfoil hat on the air. That's between shows. Yeah. Anyhow, and I need that because that helps me to really like tune in, to the signals from Mars. Because I had alluded to some leadership perhaps being stationed on Mars
Yep.
I have to be able to receive signals from there. Anyhow, and actually, that's actually, well, I'm Black Santa, and that's actually where the North Pole is. I don't know why we call it the North Pole. It's just Mars. So anyhow, yeah, this is 2023 has been an interesting year. There's been a lot of growth. I mean, for me personally, a lot of development, a lot of things changing, things that I thought that perhaps that would be a bigger part were not particularly present, and then things that that have grown and sort of kind of taken over for other things that have kind of it's transitions. Life you live, you learn, things change, you roll with the punches, you figure out where things are headed, and you try to do what you can do to acquire the skills necessary to exploit that. I mean, that's what it is. All exploitation is not bad. Exploiting something just means taking advantage of it for your own purpose. It's it's kind of taken on a negative connotation, as if you are unconcerned about all parties involved. But at some level, each person, I agree with LAR, is going to have to be focused on what they need to do to take care of themselves and their families. And the rest of it is just going to have to be whatever it is. And in fact, this is what people that have been particularly successful have been doing the whole time. That's what they've been doing the whole time. They've just been telling you dusty ninjas to be concerned about the community. You take care of the community, y'all be willing to sacrifice yourself and everything else for the community, and we'll just take care of ourselves. Right? That's kind of been how that's worked. So I think a lot of folks are waking up to that strategy and are figuring out what they need to do to fix that. But 2024, there's a lot of things that are on the decline. Marriage seems to be on the decline. Long-term relationships seem to be on the decline. Debauchery seems to be on the incline. This is what it is. So do what you need to do, make the decisions that you need to make, and continue to acquire new skills. We didn't talk much about artificial intelligence or ChatGPT with respect to how that may continue to impact the market, the job market in particular. It seems as though ChatGPT still has trouble doing a lot of human interaction kind of things. So like person-to-person human interactions where there's a lot of variables that are hard to predict. And so there's still a lot of opportunities for people to work in the service industry, because most of that interaction is that sort of person-to-person kind of thing. Now, I've gone through a few checkout lines, and I've seen that stuff is completely automated. I was talking to a machine and it was talking back and stuff. But I noticed that when I tried to make certain changes, they still needed a human being to talk to me to make those changes in the computer, because machines are still not quite capable in that way. So I don't know if that's good or bad. Middle management stuff seems to be AI can just totally do all that stuff. Most of it. And we've been talking to machines all the time anyway, when we call in to check on how much money's in your account and to pay bills and stuff like this. The stuff is slow and clunky, and I think it'll get more. It'll get better, faster, easier to use, more intuitive. But yeah, I mean, that's what it is. So save your money, but understand that there's a difference between money and currency. You could save your currency. You could, shoe boxes full of currency, but understand that every second that the money is in the shoebox, it's losing value. So you have to find other ways to save your money. Money being assets that actually retain their value, or actually gain value. So, stuff like artworks, stuff like gold, certain items, that those things are going to continue to, gain. Whereas other stuff will, you think you're helping yourself by stuffing your mattress with cash. Okay. But I don't know, maybe that's slightly better than a bank, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. And that is our time. Black Santa out. Merry Christmas Eve, everyone. Have a good holiday season. And that's it. Peace.
Peace.